It's quite a long series in sailing. How many races do each of the sailors do?
It does vary by class, and there are and match racing is a whole different thing. But more or less they have 10 preliminary heats, if you like, of which they count 9, so they're allowed 1 throw out. And the scoring is very simple: 1 point for first, 2 for second. So it's a low-scoring system, and the name of the game is to try and minimise the damage when you're in the middle of the fleet, and try and pull back a number of places to get a lower score as you can. When you're at the front, don't make a mess of it and drop back down. So you're trying to get a low-score system so that when you go into the final medal race, which is a one-off race, which scores double points, 2 for first and 20 for 10th, that you're in a position that you can't lose many places, but you can gain them if you need to. So Ben, for example, will be trying to go into the medal race with a 22-point lead so that he can't be beaten for the gold medal, but he still has to finish that race.
Still has to race. And how strong is the competition in sailing?
It's getting stronger every Olympic Games. I think the standards the British team has set over the last 4 Olympics just means that we're looked at by lots of the other nations, and a lot of the systems that we've put in place, they've copied, they've adapted to suit their culture and their sort of setup, and we are seeing the quality of the opposition rising all the time, and it seems to operate in 2 ways. There are the big teams like the Australians, the French, the Germans. Those teams are very big. They've got a lot of strength in depth, but there are also countries where there are only 1 or 2 really world-class sailors, and they invest a lot of money in those individual sailors. So that's quite hard to deal with. Sometimes they can invest more in one individual than we might across 4 or 5 different teams. But yeah, it's one of those things where if you stand still, you'll get overtaken. So we're always having to look at what we do at the top end, evaluate, improve, make some changes here and there. But it's more of an evolution than revolution.
And how important is it to sailing in the UK that our team do well here?
I think sailing in the UK is at an all-time high. I think for me personally, I'm very keen that the lessons that we learn from our Olympic stars, and they really are exceptional sailors. They're so committed to what they do, and we see that when they transfer to other boats, non-Olympic boats, they do pretty well as well. But there are so many facets to the sport outside of the Olympic side that all the things we learn from the Olympics, we want to transfer those through to whether it's keelboat sailing, whether it's team racing, whether it's international class sailing. There are coaching techniques and tips. There are lots of stuff that's coming out of this sort of investment in the top end elite program, and I think ideally we want to dominate every single discipline of our sport.
And thinking ahead as the games progress, when are we likely to get an indication of whether we're going to be winning any medals?
Sailing is one of those sports where it's never over until you cross the finish line in the very last race. It's not even the fat lady sings or anything. It is inevitably it'll be close, it'll be tight. People have always got the chance to make big points gains if they take a risk, and taking a risk usually means sailing to one edge or the other of the course, and if that pays off for you, you can win a race, but the next time you do it you might come last. So there is a bit of a sort of saying within the sport, snakes and ladders, and really what you want to do is climb ladders and not slide down too many snakes. Yeah,
you've obviously been to several Olympic Games in various different capacities. How has the lottery funding changed British sailing throughout those Olympic Games since you've been involved?
It's quite interesting. I mean, the amount of lottery funding we receive has increased games on games as well, and I think the biggest change has been that we've been able to transfer the knowledge that prior to lottery funding was accumulated by individual sailors who funded their own programs, and when they stopped competing, that knowledge, that information they got, whether it was coaching, whether it was tuning, whether it was mast and sail development, all those sorts of things were just lost. what we're able to do now is to harness those and to pass them on from one generation to another through the coaching, through the support team network, and we've just got more sophisticated and better at doing it. And you can see the results. You know, the strength in depth through the 10 Olympic classes is just phenomenal. And in our youth programme, just winning the Nations Cup last week in Ireland at the ISAF Youth World Championships. I mean, you can just see the system cascades and it delivers.
And it's obviously early days here in Weymouth for the Olympic Games, but have you seen, as you've been wandering around and looking around the venue, any differences between Weymouth and previous Olympic Games?
Do you know, it's, I mean, obviously we all know Weymouth, you know Weymouth very well, and just seeing the changes in it from, you know, sort of 10, 12 years ago for the sort of first Olympic trials that were held here for the Sydney Games, the site itself's come on phenomenally. But when you, one of the things about the Olympic Games is that the Olympic overlay standardises everything, and I think once you get inside the sort of cordoned area, it's actually quite a similar look and feel. But there'll be people you know very well wearing local tops, and people wearing very identifiable sort of kit, whether they're from a team or whatever. And normally you just see them, you know, they'll wear some team kit and there's a bit of team identity and so on. But right now it's really nationalistic, totally different from the sponsorship perspective as well. So quite different from that point of view. But none of the things, I mean, all of the things are what you'd expect if you'd been to a previous Olympic Games. And I think the team we have, with the blend of experience, now Ben going from being the youngest member in 1996 to being one of the oldest members in 2012, means that he's able to sort of pass that information, that experience on, and just sort of quell the excitement that I'm sure some of the first timers will be feeling. And I think it's just trying to. It's a bit of a cliche, but you're trying to make the regatta as just like any other event you go to. It isn't, but you're trying to make it as similar as possible, and I think that's how it would feel different.
I was lucky enough on Friday to get over to Weymouth Beach when they presented the sailing team on stage, and I was amazed at the size of the crowds over there. And have you had a chance to feel that atmosphere, and what are your thoughts about that? Better than expected?
Well, we know that all the tickets for the Noath site have sold out every day, and that's just a testament to how popular sailing is mainly in this country. I mean, we've got obviously people coming from abroad to watch as well, but I think I think sailing is a sport that the nation is taking increasingly to its heart, games on games, and that you know the interest in Ben particularly, you know, to become potentially the most successful Olympic sailor of all time is just phenomenal. But let's not forget, we've got Ian Percy going for his third gold medal. We've got Paul Goodison as well defending his gold medal, and of course Bart crewing for Ian. That both of them, you know, they're out on their first stage racing today as well. So we've got some returning medalists defending their pitch, and all of those things just create huge interest. Not many sports have deliver medals in, you know, more than about half their medal opportunities. So yeah, we're really pleased, and it just adds to the atmosphere and the excitement.
And as you say, a huge amount of interest in sailing and working on the success that we've seen over the last few years. Are there any initiatives that the RYA are running to try and harness that enthusiasm and get more people involved during the games with sailing?
I think the RYA website is a really good, excellent website that, well, I would say that, wouldn't I? But it is a website that actually takes you through. If you don't know a lot about sailing, it tells you, you know, how to get started, what it's about, what the sport's about, because there's no doubt it's a complicated sport. It's one of those sports that's difficult if you don't know that much about it to follow on TV. But I think what they've done on that website is really explain what goes on, how the racing works, and if you're interested enough, where to go to learn, to go and have a go and learn how to do it. I think one of the great things about it is it's a sport that whether you're Ben Ainsley or a beginner racer, you could be out on the race course at the same time in a boat competing against them. Most other sports have, you know, you'd start on a different line. Not in sailing, you all compete together, and that creates the interest. And it is a participant sport. You know, As much as I love watching racing, and I'm sure you do as well, I'd much rather be out there doing it. And I think once you've done it and you get the bug, you realise why. It's much better to do it than just watch it. But if you can't do it, watch it. This week, next 2 weeks are going to be fantastic.